is on. There we go.
Okay.
Hi, people. YouTube is their live servers are partially broken, so our pre-scheduled event will not accept a stream. So
we're gonna do it live, I guess.
Yes.
I'm gonna go try to find what the new URLs and bring people over.
yeah, so give us a moment. You'll just get to watch us sitting here typing while we try to deal with the YouTube being broken.
They have changed so much in the last couple months, and not for the better.
No, they break their own things.
Okay, so do you have a URL for that?
I'm not sure. It's just on the front page. It's stream now. I don't even know it has a special URL.
Oh, it has to have a URL.
Well, I don't know. It's got to go to our YouTube page and
no,
see.
because I don't have it set up for that.
This version, there's no. This is not an event. This is just straight to your homepage on YouTube.
They keep hiding this stuff. Okay, so this is the one.
Okay, so yeah, there we are live. There's a crazy URL that they made for us.
Okay, now I have to find my way back to the other one.
And tell people to come join us over here.
Oh, goodness.
Let's turn your volume down so we don't echo.
Okay, people are actually here.
Yeah. All right, people, give us a second. I mean, actually, if you want to start queuing up some questions into the chat room.
So we are Sheree and Chris. You figured that part out from the little sign down there. We are the hosts of the Mobile Internet Resource Center channel and the Mobile Internet Resource Center website and Facebook groups. And mobile internet is our passion. It is not mobile internet that was our problem tonight. It's the YouTube servers.
No, we got 40 megabits per second upload and download here, and we're like, what's going on?
So anyway, tonight we're going to do something that we haven't really done too much on the YouTube channel, and that's offering a free Q&A. So basically, if you've got questions about mobile internet while RVing or boating, we have 13 years of experience doing that. And we're happy to field those questions. And a lot of it's probably going to be referring you to content that we already have created. We're not going to be able to go into in-depth here or offer a lot of in-depth advising. That is the sort of thing that we do with our premium members, our MIAs, who fund all of this that we're able to create for public content. But we are happy to help with mobile internet questions. I see we have some questions that are not related to mobile internet. This is our mobile internet channel. If you have questions about RVing or boating or buses or things like that, save that for when we do something on our Technomadia channel, which is our personal stuff.
Yeah, unless it's a question about staying connected while RVing, boating, or busing, and antennas and boosters and cell towers and how 5G is going to impact the world. These are the things we talk about on this channel. The Technomadia channel, which by the way has a really cool new video on it, is where we talk about all the fun stuff. Although internet is fun, so except when Google is being broken, like today. And so Sheree is going to try and post the updated URL because the pre-scheduled one is just not working. And then we will be with you in a second. And actually, I could even...
I gotta go update some links and groups and stuff.
So I could take the first thing about the first question then while you do some updating.
Okay.
Is Mike Orr wants to know, I can... Bonk. There we go. I can even put the questions over here. Let me turn off that. Do you have anything new about the Roadlink C2 Togo? And so the Roadlink C2 Togo is basically the WineGuard Connect T 2.0, which we have reviewed. Roadlink Togo Roadlink is just basically rebranding that exact same hardware from WineGuard. And it actually costs a little bit more. So why would you get the Roadlink version? But there's one really cool thing they have is they have a deal with AT&T to be able to offer an unlimited, all-you-can-use data plan for $360 a year prepaid. So that is one of the cheapest ways to get unlimited data and without all sorts of other hoops to jump through and all that other stuff. So that is the reason to go with the Roadlink version of that. WineGuard wishes they could offer that sort of plan on the Connect T 2.0 itself. But that is an exclusive to Roadlink, and also Airstream on the Airstream plans that are bundled with certain Airstreams have that same plan inside of it. So there's nothing new on the Roadlink hardware. There's nothing new with their plans. They're still able to offer that plan, and that keeps things kind of interesting.
Right. If you'd like more information on the To-Go, we have that fully written up at mobileinternetinfo.com/togo, Togo. So we have a bunch of questions in there.
Whoa, cool.
So we do have the super chat turned on. This is a free Q&A. But if you're not one of our MIA members, you don't feel like a full membership is what you need, but you would like to say thanks for us taking your questions this evening, the super chat will definitely make your questions stand out more. I see a whole bunch of questions coming through. Yes. There's no way we're going to be able to get to everything, I'm sure. But definitely, if you appreciate this service and you would like us to pay particular attention to your question, the super chat definitely does get our attention.
Elevates it. And otherwise, we're just going to start working our way down through the list and picking the most interesting questions. We can't necessarily go into super in-depth like we do when we host our member video chats and stuff like that, where we actually do two-way video and can dive deep into people, but we will pick some questions here.
So Paper Tiger asks, is the MoFi still the best mobile internet solution? And I would say the MoFi is not considered a best mobile internet solution at all. In our testing, we found it extremely frustrating. It's a low-end modem. What's good about it is it does support all carriers, kind of.
So the MoFi it's for those who don't know, it is a cellular enabled router. The MoFi 4500 is the best of the bunch, and it's only like $299. Is it? It's relatively affordable. It's like
the $300 range.
Yeah, it's relatively affordable for what it is. It has a lot of hardware for that price, but their software is atrocious. It is an IT manager's worst nightmare, and a regular users are going to have a lot of trouble with it. But
some people really like it because of the price point. You get the embedded router functionality. Right. But if you are really interested in top performing mobile routers or the higher end sort of stuff, we really recommend you look more at Pepwave or Cradlepoint gear, which does have a higher price point.
Or the cellular integrated stuff from the likes of WineGuard or Roadlink or Wi-Fi Ranger, which have a much more friendly and kind of prepackaged end user friendly experience. So we've always found MoFi is interesting. We know some people who are happy with it. We know a lot of other people who are very frustrated with it because it kind of sits in the middle of the hardware is only okay, not great, and the software is atrocious. And you know basically the one tip we have for anybody who does anything with a MoFi is whenever you're doing anything with the settings and something gets messed up, you can't undo it usually. You sometimes just have to do a factory reset and start from scratch. And that can be the process you go through while getting it configured. Once you have it configured for cellular, it can work pretty reliably. Its Wi-Fi as WAN features, where you're trying to connect to remote campgrounds and stuff, don't work very well at all. Much harder to configure.
Okay.
Let's see. I see Joe, the computer guy's here.
Yes, I just upgraded him to a moderator. So, Joe, you do have moderator access now, hopefully. Joe is on our staff. He is he actually does our field testing with cellular boosters and antennas. He is currently cross-country trip. He came from Florida out to California. Now he's on his way back to the East Coast. And he has been testing. We have, I think, 5 different cellular boosters in testing right now. The new WeBoost Reach, the 4GX, the Solid RF RV Pro, the Cellfi Go M, and we just added in the new SureCall Fusion to Go Max, which just came out last month. He is testing those all head-to-head for us, and he's collecting field testing data. And our members do get to witness the field testing data and see head-to-head just how different boosters work in different situations.
And also the situations where boosters don't work. And that's one of the things we tell people a lot is boosters are only your best choice in a certain percentage of situations, usually a pretty small percentage, but then direct wired antennas can really, really excel. And we've actually got a whole bunch of interesting direct wired antennas here. We're using the pointing 7-in-1 antenna as the stand to hold the camera up here. So you're being boosted by an antenna,
just for
camera
visual. Yes, we are constantly testing antennas and boosters, and we have reviews on a lot of that available to our members. So if that's something you're interested in, if you're ready to purchase devices, you might want to consider a membership so you can get that in-depth content from us.
Gustavo, I wanted to call this question. Is this live? If you're watching this at 6:20 or so Central Time, it is live.
We are live right now. Okay, so George says my 8000L, are you sure you're not the 8800L? Still says there's no software update available. So if you were still on the 1R software update and you did not get the 1S, or is it 1Q? I forget what, but it's the 1S you're looking for. There are workarounds, and our members actually do have tips on how to do that in our member section.
Yeah, if most people, it seems like 95% of people, their 8800s have updated just fine. If not, you can call Inseego support. We've got some tips on how to force an update in our members area. It's really annoying and frustrating. We know how much frustrating that hotspot has been for so many people. But when they get the new...
Or you can just try contacting Inseego and see if you can't talk them into giving you the tips on that. Okay, let's see. Heatseeker Bus says, hi, I'm in Northern Ontario. I'm about to travel to Arizona for the winter. What should I have for internet? And, the difficulty when traveling across borders, us Americans have the same problem when we go to Canada, is we're not eligible for buying postpaid data plans with the cellular carriers directly without having usually a country-specific billing address and or credit card for that country. So you really are stuck with going with prepaid or reseller options. We actually just put out a brand new guide for Canadians traveling in the U.S. as part of our member exclusive benefits that goes through a bunch of the options. But if you want to go search on the Resource Center, just look for reseller options on the carriers of your choice that you want to go with. And we do have a video on the 4 carriers. You probably want to stick with one on Verizon and or AT&T. There are a lot of great options on AT&T as a reseller option, OTR Mobile, NetBuddy, and other options where you don't have to worry, that you just have to be able to pay them and they'll send you
You're not
service.
having any sort of service contract, anything long-term and stuff like that. So definitely the way to go. And we know a lot of people think, oh, is Wi-Fi going to be enough? And you probably want a cellular plan.
And if your needs are high, if you're wanting more than just checking email and web surfing and things like that. Okay.
Okay, here's an interesting question from Kay Schrouder. As I find that on Visible, band 13 is faster and stronger than band 2. However, my phone keeps choosing band 2. How can I lock into band 13? This is the sort of interesting geeky stuff. Like these are the different cell phone bands. Then different devices have support for different bands. Different carriers have support for different bands. They're like channels on a TV. And depending on your signal situation, sometimes one is better than the other. From the speed and your user experience standpoint. But on the other hand, the carriers are trying to shuffle you around behind the scenes to give them more capacity. So band 13 is a longer range and slower band than band 2. They're both on different frequencies. And it can be, there's very few devices that will let you force override what the tower and your device are negotiating to say, go to this band or go to that band. Certain things like the PepWave cellular routers will let you do this. The MOFA actually has an interface that will let you force bands like that. And there are some, for Android phones, there are some basically advanced root your phone type hacks that will let you override the bands and stuff like that. But the other thing you could do is just if you have a more advanced phone, the phones that support carrier aggregation can often connect to multiple bands at once. And so then you can kind of have your phone behind the scenes. It might pick one primary band, but still be able to take advantage of the other bands. So if your phone's older, it might...
Or not necessarily older, like on Visible.
Or less advanced,
Visible, if you went with that R2, which is the $19 phone that they're selling with the plan, that one's only a Category 4 modem and doesn't have carrier aggregation. So number one, you're only getting access to 4 Verizon's bands on that low-end phone. And you're not getting...
Only one at a time.
And you can only get one at a time. Whereas if you go with a more advanced phone... with a higher end modem inside of it, you're going to have access to more Verizon's coverage, and you're going to get carrier aggregation so that you can actually use multiple bands at once. So that's one of the huge advantages of keeping your technology updated. Not just necessarily what's new today. That R2 is a new phone. It's just based on really low end modem chipset.
Yeah. Whereas you go to something like a Galaxy S10 or the iPhone 11 series and stuff, they actually support up to 5-way carrier aggregation, and they have 4 antennas, and you can do 4x4 MIMO on the Pro lines and the top end Android devices. So they can make a lot more out of that signal in whatever bands you happen to be getting at one place.
So if you would like to learn more about LTE modem specs, we actually have a video that we did earlier this year. I think we entitled it "What Jetpack is Best," but it's all about LTE modem specs, and we go and explain what the categories mean, what carrier aggregation is. And that's a free video that's on the channel. You can also find it at mobileinternetinfo.com/LTE-modems, or if you just search for it on our website, you'll find it there as well. But it is on the channel. You can go and find that video. Learn a whole bunch more. We actually did some head-to-head testing with devices of different classifications, starting at Category 4 all the way up to Category 18, and just showed what the actual differences is in the speeds that you can get.
Okay.
So Sean had a question about the To-Go, which we already cover at the beginning, so hopefully you caught that. If not, go to mobileinternetinfo.com/to-go. to get
try
all the
this
info
one
on
from
there.
the food porn chef.
Sure.
There we go.
All right, so Food Porn Chef says, can you explain how RV Internet Booster extenders and antenna works with a Verizon cell phone and unlimited data jetpacks? I'm not sure how this really stops me from. It stops me from. So this is an extremely complex topic to go into. We literally have hours of video on cellular signal enhancing, but basically, if you have a smartphone like this one, you really are only limited. The only thing that you can do to get better signal, there's two things you can do. You can hold the phone up in the air and try to get a better signal. Or you can use a cellular booster, which basically is putting an antenna on your roof, and then it has a box that magically does some digital, or actually analog usually.
Yeah, it basically takes the signal from outside, amplifies it, and broadcasts it louder inside. And even more importantly, it takes the small signal coming out of your phone, which is pretty weak relative to the signal from a cell tower, and amplifies your signal back so the cell tower can hear you.
Right.
So that's the only option you have for improving the signal on a phone. But you mentioned you have a jetpack.
Right.
A lot of jetpacks, and I'm assuming the 7700, you probably have a 7730.
I'm hoping that's what you meant.
Yeah. That has actually two antenna ports, and you can then plug in an external antenna on your roof that will almost always outperform a booster.
So there's a lot to understand about cellular signal enhancing. And as you might have guessed, we have a guide to that. You can find that at mobileinternetinfo.com/cell signal. We have one on boosters/boosters, and we have one on MIMO/MIMO. MIMO stands for multiple in, multiple out. And basically it just means using two antennas. Think of them like ears. Yeah. And we actually have a video out on the channel, MIMO versus boosters, that explains the two technologies and again shows some head-to-head examples. And that came out, I believe, in July or June. So,
so you're asking about being talked out of buying money. We try to encourage people to spend smart, only buy as much as you need. And in particular, if like you're looking just to get better connections, spending $600 on a cell booster versus one of our favorite MIMO antennas is the Netgear MIMO antenna, which is about $30 right now it's going for.
Yes, it's usually priced about $30 on Amazon.
So start with the $30 Netgear MIMO antenna, and then if you really need it, if you need to move up to it, you can add a cell booster and add a dedicated full-time antenna on the roof as opposed to one stuck in your window and stuff like that. But you can start cheap, keep it simple, and don't spend more than you need to. We know so many people who spend a lot of money on boosters and crazy setups that are more than they need and actually perform less than that $30 antenna in the window sometimes.
Okay, so I see Carolyn Moore has had a bunch of questions and looks like she's had them answered in the chat screen, so I'm having trouble following along exactly what needs to be answered here.
Okay, we're going to be skimming through here. So again, if you've want to make sure we don't skip over your question, throw it into the super chat because we're going to fall far behind here.
Right. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead to Hershey Motorhome. Says, I thought the To-Go was capped at 22 gigabytes high speed. I've heard people say it was both ways. Which one is it? So when you're talking about unlimited data plans, particularly with AT&T, and you see 22 gigabytes as a stated threshold, that is usually referring to the network management threshold. And that's just the point at which if you find yourself in an area that the tower is overloaded with a whole bunch of AT&T customers streaming YouTube or whatever they're doing online and it's congested, just if you have used 22 gigabytes of data in that month, they reserve the right to deprioritize your traffic over other customers. It does not mean that you're automatically throttled down.
It's not like hitting a speed cliff where you hit 22 gigabytes and it gets slow. And in fact, most of the time, most AT&T customers who cross that threshold do not notice it, and you probably wouldn't notice that you are on a second tier priority unless you were going head to head with somebody who had the same device, who hadn't crossed the threshold, and someone who had. Because on a super congested tower, everybody's going to be slow, and on an uncongested tower, everybody's going to be fast. So you're only basically on a mildly congested or mediumly congested tower. If you've crossed that 22 gig threshold, the person who hasn't yet will be faster. So it's a lot different than those hard throttles that when you hit a limit, hit a limit, whatever that hard throttle limit is on other carriers, then your speeds are cut down until the end of the month. These network management throttles, these are just relative and they last only as long as the tower is congested. So it might only be slowing you down for a minute or two or 3 or 4 or maybe until later in the evening when people go to bed. But it's a very temporary thing. So those 22 gig limits, particularly on AT&T's network, has been performing really well, are not very
usually
painful.
A concern. So no, it is not a hard cap.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There are some plans out there that do throttle. it's a hard throttle where after you use a certain amount of data, you are put down at a specific lower speed. Okay, so there's a lot of questions about the 8800 on Verizon versus the 8000 on Sprint. And these are the jetpacks. Now remember, jetpack is a term specifically branded by Verizon for their mobile hotspot devices. MiFi is the term used by Inseego, the manufacturer of both of these devices, to refer to their mobile hotspot devices. So they are both MiFis, but only the Verizon 8800L is a jetpack.
Yes.
Confusing.
Yes.
All right. These two devices, they are pretty much very similar devices. They look almost physically the same. One is slightly lighter color. The Sprint one, however, does support most of the frequency bands for all carriers, whereas the Verizon one is mostly optimal for Verizon. The Verizon one does come unlocked when you purchase it from the carrier. The Sprint one, however, is locked to Sprint. And to date, they are supposed to unlock it after 2 months of service. We have not heard of any successful reports yet.
Sprint tends to have challenges doing
Basic
administrative things like that behind the scenes. And yeah, we actually got a review 8000. We were supposed to be able to test it on all the carriers, and then basically Sprint got back to us saying, we can't unlock review units. It's like, that's the main thing we wanted to test. Oh, great.
So,
okay.
But yeah, we have several members who purchased them, and so far yet none of them have reported any success of being able to unlock their Sprint device. But hopefully someone is able to, because that would make it a great cross-carrier device. You can use mobile hotspot devices on different carriers, but then you don't have all the frequency bands that are needed. So you really need to look at the frequency band supported by the carrier you want to use versus the frequency band supported by the device you're using, and make sure that you've got at least the primary core ones.
Yeah, and that's where devices that are more generically sold, like the MoFi or the PepWave routers, and the PepWave Max Mini is actually very affordable. And others like that are not tied to a particular carrier. They tend to have a lot of the bands and support for all the carriers, and no lockings, no restrictions. You can just swap in whatever SIM card you have, and assuming your plan is compatible, you're online. So that's great.
Boondocking Life asks, any new jetpacks on the horizon? I have an old 6620 on its last legs, and I'm looking for an upgrade. The 8800 just came out about a year ago, and it just in August became more stable. Verizon doesn't tend to release new hotspots maybe once every 2 years, and we really think the 8800 is probably going to be their last one for LTE 4G.
Their last high-end one. Anyway.
Their high-end one. They may come out with lower ones, but we are always surprised. We don't normally get advanced heads up. They're not like a big, like an iPhone or something like that, where there's a lot of leaks and things like that. We try to catch them if we can, but usually we're finding them even before the carriers have put out a press release.
Well, where the carriers are focused as far as their flagship hotspots now is they're rolling out their 5G ones, and actually, Verizon does have the sequel of the 8800, the 5G NR, the whatever. They have one. We've written about it. That you can get as a hotspot. Sprint has a 5G hotspot. All the carriers, AT&T has a 5G hotspot. But I wouldn't recommend any of these 5G hotspots, the first generation ones. This time next year, the second or third generation 5G hotspots will be starting to come to market, and they will be much better supported into the future, and they'll have much better just all around, stability and performance. So that'll be kind of the next wave of hotspots, and maybe at the very end of this year that the new second generation hotspots will start showing up, probably more likely early next year.
Okay. Let's see.
Okay. There's lots of questions here. Let's jump onto something here.
A lot of questions about what is the best antenna for the 8800. So much if you're for an over-the-road trucker. So if you're wanting for something while in motion, you're going to want something omnidirectional on your roof. If you're looking for something when you're stopped, then that Netgear MIMO antenna for $30 is great. So it just really depends upon what your needs are.
In motion versus stopped are very different challenges, and so there's no universal answer there, but there's quite a few antenna options that can take advantage of those antenna ports directly on an 8800.
Right. We have a full guide to cellular antennas at mobileinternetinfo.com/cell antennas and our cellular antennas. And you can find that guide, and we have some of the featured ones in there. A lot of the higher end roof mounted antenna options, however, will require that you get an SMA to TS9 adapter to be able to use it with a jetpack, however, because those are, most of the roof mounted ones are designed to go into higher end gear that uses SMA connectors.
What do you want to do next?
Chris Stevenson asked, how do I find out if I'm on LTE Plus on an iPhone?
So I'm guessing you're probably meaning whether if you're on AT&T, you might see the 5GE symbol come up, which is AT&T's pretend 5G. That's the closest thing to something that might be an indication of LTE Plus. Otherwise, there really isn't a thing called LTE Plus.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean by LTE Plus.
Yeah, there's you gave an example of what some other thing would be talking about it, but there's really no such thing.
Johnny Jones asks, any suggestions on a booster for mobile data and cell service? Okay, so without knowing your particular needs, I cannot give you specific advice, but I would recommend you go to rvmobileinternet.com/overview, which is our overview guide to the options that are out there. Then you can go in and dig into the options that are out there and what's best for you. There is no singular best option that we can recommend because all of our needs differ so much, and really what works best is what works best at your current location.
And again, as we talked about already in this chat, is a booster might not be your best solution depending on what your needs are, what devices you're trying to get online. A booster is disappointing for a lot of people, but essential for others. So you really need to know how your needs fit with what a booster actually is capable of.
Okay. Zippy the Chicken says, has Sprint or another 5G hotspot carrier offered more data per month than 100 gigabytes? Have you been testing a 5G hotspot? A friend in a rural area could benefit maybe if Sprint covers their area. So right now, all of the carriers except for T-Mobile are focused on 5G in very metro urban areas. It has not yet rolled out to rural areas.
And T-Mobile hasn't rolled out their rural 5G yet either.
Yes.
So the key thing is the radios, the 5G radios that will support the long range 5G aren't released yet. Those are the ones that are coming at the end of this year. So none of the carriers are able to do long range 5G yet. Sprint actually can do Sprint is ahead when it comes to 5G coverage maps because they can do a medium range 5G just because of the nature of the spectrum they own. But right now Sprint has got medium range 5G, nobody's got long range 5G, and everybody's got some 5G that basically only goes the distance of a block. So not very useful for RVers, really only useful in very core dense metro areas. And the 5G signals don't even penetrate windows, those short-range signals and stuff.
Right. So as to the question, are we testing 5G gear right yet? No, it's not yet prime time for RVers and cruisers. And LTE is still going to be the option that most of us will use going into the future until it's really fully deployed. If you just look at how long it took for 4G LTE to get to a point where it was across country. Yeah. But it'll be a while.
Yeah, I mean, this time next year, towards the end of next year, is 5G. All the new radios will be out, and all the carriers will start to overlay their 4G and 5G networks. So you'll start to have 5G roll out pretty quickly. But again, it won't be stuff you can buy. The hardware is not going to be out until next year for the most part.
Okay. Watch Later says, I'm a city van lifer and I would like to put a router in my van. Is it possible? And if so, can I pay a pro to put it in for me? So a router is just a piece of hardware, and yes, you can bring it physically into your van. There's nothing preventing you, unless you have some strange force field on your doors that prevents routers coming in.
Right, a jetpack is technically a router. A little jetpack, your phone, when your phone is sharing the connection on it, doing personal hotspot, it is acting as a router. So you probably have already taken routers into your van.
So there's nothing fancy about bringing a router into your van, and I wouldn't recommend paying someone to do that for you.
But if you're talking about taking something like a Pepwave Max Transit or something, or Max BR1 and building that into your van, it depends on your own comfort level. If you want to have it permanently mounted, screwed to the wall, and an antenna on the roof. Not a big deal to do it yourself, and also not a big deal at all for an RV installer to do it. Just say, hey, I want the antenna here, and I want the thing here in my closet, and make it on a 12 volt with a switch. So it depends on how handy do-it-yourself you are, but it's not a big deal either way.
Right. You the Man says, could you create your own internet broadband? So you have to get something from somewhere. It's like, can you create your own fuel? Can you create your own water? Is it possible? No, not really. I mean, you have to have a source to the internet. You have to have a connection to the internet. So most RVers and cruisers are getting their broadband internet either from cellular, from using Wi-Fi. So like what be offered.
Somebody's upstream Wi-Fi.
Might be like offered at a campground or a marina or a Starbucks or something like that. Or satellite. Maybe you can plug into cable or something like that, but most of us build an arsenal of solutions and then have a router of some sort that then brings those together and then is choosing the best option. We're right now running off a Pepwave Max Transit that has a SIM card from AT&T and Verizon, and we have external antennas on it that's getting us the connection to be able to do this broadcast. And we're right now in a house that we're visiting family on right now.
But the house has no internet, so we're actually using cellular internet here in the house because they've already turned off the internet here. We actually had a super chat, so we'll jump straight to that here from Boondocking Life. Gave a super chat, and their question gets priority here. So it is let me bring them up. Bing. Any plans to update our coverage app? Would love to see U.S. cellular map. Also, Bell, TELUS, Rogers for Canada would be handy. Thanks for all you do. So coverage is an app that we wrote almost 10 years ago. That lets you overlay the carrier's coverage maps on your phone, and all the maps are actually stored on your phone. So adding a new carrier to it would mean a lot more data on your phone, another couple hundred megs of storage.
And sourcing those, our map provider where we get source our maps from, we have a partnership with, who are they now, Ookla?
Yeah, Ookla, it's a Mosaic, was it now it's Ookla.
They don't track U.S. Cellular. And U.S. Cellular is a regional carrier. They're not nationwide. So as far as for our core audience, which is RVers and cruisers, they're not a carrier that is commonly used. So we don't really feel that it's worth the extra overhead in the app for everybody to have, nor is it easy to acquire those maps to have on
we have had that on our wish list, and we've talked about it basically every time we go back to renegotiate maps with the guys. They're saying, what do we wish for? It's like, we would love to be able to have Canadian maps. We'd love to be able to have, U.S. Cellular is the largest regional. We'd love to be able to offer them, but it so far has not proven practical. Again, every time we talk to them, we will ask them again. It's like, hey, can you get us maps like this yet? And if they ever say yes, we'll probably put it in the app, but it's really outside of our control.
Right, and creating the maps by hand is just too much effort. So, and without a source, unfortunately, it's hard to do.
But thank you so much for that super chat. That's awesome. Yes. Okay, now go back, find out where you were. There's a lot of nice positive comments in here. Let's take this one from Charlie Sheehan. Have you guys tested T-Mobile's 600 megahertz band 71 spectrum? So 600 megahertz spectrum is T-Mobile's bought up a whole bunch of basically UHF TV stations and shut them down, and has been using this low frequency new LTE band 71 that T-Mobile is the only carrier using, and it gives T-Mobile basically the same sort of range and penetration into buildings that AT&T and Verizon have. So it finally lets T-Mobile kind of compete at that level. They've been rolling out band 71 across the nation. They've got a pretty good chunk of it covered now, and it does help with T-Mobile coverage a lot. And yeah, actually, when here in this house, I can't get on with T-Mobile without band 71. So I was testing T-Mobile band 71 just yesterday. The catch is, not a lot of devices, particularly not a lot of devices made before basically in the past year, had any support for band 71. So T-Mobile customers who have older phones or older hotspots and everything like that, they're completely missing out on that. So it's very worthwhile to upgrade and make sure you're able to tap into band 71. It should improve your T-Mobile coverage quite a bit in a lot of rural areas, and also help you get coverage inside houses and inside basements and stuff like that.
Okay, living the RV local life. I'm going to Alaska in the winter. Or are you talking about next summer? I hope. And was wondering what you would recommend for some Wi-Fi for streaming, etc., if anything. So we have a full guide to traveling up to Alaska, rvmobileinternet.com/Alaska, where there's some tips and tricks in there. And basically the AT&T was the first U.S. carrier to have service up there. Verizon has moved in the last couple of years and is LTE only up there. And then there's a local carrier as well. I think it's called GIL or something like that. that you can get local SIM cards on, and those are going to be your best bets. And as long as you're in populated areas, usually coverage is pretty good. It's when you get outside of those populated areas where you're going off the coverage map. So it just depends upon where you are and what you want to be able to do.
Yeah, and there are some interesting satellite options that'll be coming to Alaska next year too. So a lot of stuff is changing up in Alaska in the near future. Okay, so here's an interesting question from Kay Schroeder about, will Verizon be repurposing their 2G and 3G bands for 5G that is other than the millimeter wave that is super short range? And yes, all the carriers are going to be repurposing their networks, and there's actually a technology that will be coming out next year. That's why we're saying don't buy any 5G devices this year, that will let 5G overlay on top of 4G. So they'll be able to not just shut down the 4G networks and use it for 5G, they'll be able to use the frequency bands simultaneously for 4G and 5G. So yeah, they're going to take advantage of all the spectrum they have to try and roll out 5G with both the long range frequency bands as well as that super short range millimeter wave stuff. But any Verizon 5G phone you buy this year will not be able to take advantage of that. So wait until the next generation stuff comes out.
All right, I think we're kind of winding down, and I think we've answered
Okay.
plenty of questions. So we'll give these another try. Thanks for joining in this evening.
And again, apologize for, it was all YouTube and Google's fault that we did not have the initial stream up. That was totally on their end.
But if you enjoy these sorts of interactions and be able to get advice, or you want to go deeper with our content, please do consider becoming a member. You can find out more about our membership program at mobileinternetinfo.com/membership.
An overlay for that.
Well,
not for membership.
For membership, but there's a join button right on the front page. We do a monthly webinar with our members. It is two-way interactive video, so we can actually dive deep into it with our members and help them figure out the right gear and plans for them. We have lots of content. You've seen us mention a lot of it. We have full guides, we have videos, we have tutorials, we have a classroom, and we have forums where we take questions, and we can go back and forth with our members and really help them. So if mobile internet is an important part of your lifestyle, we do encourage you to become a member. It helps make our public content possible, and we give a lot of extra perks to our members as well.
Okay, so thank you guys, and I don't know if there's anything else we want to cover here, but
Yep.
Okay, let's wrap this up. Let's see, finishing. So
Have a great
good
night.
Take care, and broadcast.